This happened last summer. I had just returned to my old house, a two-story colonial that looked as tired as I felt. The paint was peeling, and the overgrown weeds in the front garden seemed to close in on me. I was there to sort through my late father's belongings and try to find inspiration for my next novel. I didn't think much of it at first. I was just trying to reconnect with memories of my family. The first night was quiet. I unpacked my boxes and cleared some space. I was exhausted after the drive, so I collapsed into bed hoping to find some ideas for my writing. On the second night, though, I heard a faint rustling sound coming from the attic. I thought it might be old pipes settling or maybe the house just creaking. But I tried to ignore it. An unsettling chill crept over me, almost like something was watching. As days passed, the sounds didn't stop. Every night, I heard soft thuds and footsteps above me. I'd lie in bed, feeling my heart race, unsure if I should investigate or hide under the covers. I wished I could shake the feeling that I wasn't alone. One evening, something happened that I still can't explain. I was sitting in the living room when a family photo from the 90s fell off the wall and shattered all over the floor. Glass scattered everywhere, like memories I didn't want to revisit. I bent down to pick it up when I noticed something strange, a box tucked away in the corner of the closet. I opened it. Inside were letters, some faded and yellowed. They hinted at secrets I'd never known. They were about my family, and things made my head spin. I felt uneasy, like the walls were closing in. I glanced around, half expecting someone to be there, someone I couldn't see. Each night grew heavier with more strange sounds. I'd hear whispers swirling around the walls, almost like a conversation among the spirits of my past. Maybe I was just tired, I thought. But then, I felt someone brush past me one night. My heart raced. I spun around, but there was only the dark hallway that I started to doubt everything. Was it just the grief of losing my father? Or was there really something more to explain these happenings? I decided to confront the attic. The night I mustered the courage, I climbed that rickety ladder. I opened the door slowly. Darkness swallowed me. Then I heard a whisper behind me, "You shouldn't have come back." I turned around fast, my heart pounding. There was no one there. The last thing I remember was the feeling of icy breath on my neck. That horrible realization hit me hard. Maybe some things are better left buried. I stumbled back, terrified, and something shifted in the shadows. I couldn't make sense of it all. I dropped the letters, the truth crumbling around me. Then I ran. I ran from that house, from those memories, hoping to escape whatever haunted me. But part of me knew I'd never quite leave it behind. I didn't go back that night. Instead, I drove to a nearby motel, trying to clear my head. The fluorescent lights buzzed above me as I sat on the edge of the bed. I must have checked my phone 100 times, staring at it like it would somehow show me a way forward. But there were no texts, no calls, just silence. The next morning, I woke up with a heavy sense of dread. The memories of the house clawed at my thoughts. I knew I couldn't run forever. I had to find out what was going on, why those whispers haunted me. I decided to start with my neighbor, Mrs. Baker. She had lived next door for as long as I could remember and always seemed to know everything about everyone. When I arrived at her door, she greeted me with a smile, but it quickly faded when I mentioned I was back in town to clean out my dad's house. "I'm so sorry for your loss," she said softly. "Your father was a good man." We talked for a while, and I finally brought up the noises. Her face paled instantly. "You really shouldn't be up there," she warned. "Strange things happen in that attic. It's best not to disturb what's up there." I was taken aback. "What do you mean, strange things?" She hesitated, glancing over her shoulder as if afraid someone might overhear. "The last family that lived there, the Petersons, they said they heard voices. And one night, they found a diary. It belonged to your grandfather. why didn't anyone tell me this before? I asked, trying to suppress my frustration. But deep down, something clicked. That could explain the letters I found. Mrs. Baker carefully handed me a cup of tea as she continued. Your grandfather was a recluse, always in his head. After your grandmother passed, he barely left the house. I think he buried some things up there, things that should have stayed hidden. I felt a chill despite the warm tea. What kind of things? I have no idea, but just be careful. Sometimes the past doesn't want to be disturbed. I thanked her and left her house, my heart pounding. The thought of a diary buried up there unsettled me. What if my grandfather had left something significant behind? I had to know. As I made my way back to the old house, a storm began brewing in the distance. Thunder rumbled overhead, echoing my unease. I parked outside, hesitating as rain began to fall. Part of me wanted to give up. But the other part, that curious and reckless part, urged me to face whatever awaited me. I climbed the porch steps, and the wooden boards creaked under my weight. The door swung open with a groan, backdrop of memories filling my senses. I took a deep breath and walked inside, the ominous presence of the attic calling to me once again. With each step toward that rickety ladder, the shadows felt deeper. This time, as I climbed, I could hear whispers swirling around me. They seemed to chant my name. Just as I reached the top, everything went still. The door creaked open, and I sensed someone or something was waiting for me on the other side. That's when I saw it, a dusty old box at the edge of the room, half hidden in darkness. With my heart racing, I dared to approach. I felt a cold draft, as if the space itself was warning me to turn back. But I couldn't. I had to see what was inside that box, even if it meant facing the ghosts of my past. I reached for the box, my fingers trembling slightly. The surface was rough with dust, and I could feel that chill in the air intensifying as I got closer. I hesitated for a moment, listening for the familiar whispers that had guided me up here, but they were silent now. With a deep breath, I grasped the lid and opened it. Inside, I found a jumble of old photographs, yellowed and fading. They captured moments long gone: my father as a boy, my grandfather with a stern expression, and even my grandmother with a warm smile that felt oddly out of place in this dusty attic. My heart ached at the sight of her. I sifted through the photos, trying to find something that would explain the whispers or the diaries. As I pressed deeper, I uncovered another item, a small, leather-bound book. It was much smaller than the rest of the contents, worn but intact. My pulse quickened. Could this be the diary Mrs. Baker mentioned? I opened it carefully, and the musty smell hit me like a wave. The handwriting was shaky. It was my grandfather's. I started reading, hoping to find answers. He wrote about his life, small details, but the entries grew darker as I turned the pages. Mentions of voices that spoke to him, shadows in the corners of his vision, and a sense of dread suffocating him. This isn't just a diary, I whispered to myself. It's a warning. Suddenly, the atmosphere changed. A crack of thunder outside made me jump, casting the room in shifting shadows. I closed the book, feeling an urgency to leave this space. But just as I stood up, a loud bang reverberated from the bottom of the attic stairs. My heart felt like it stopped. I froze, adrenaline coursing through me. Had someone else entered the house? Or was it just the wind? My instinct screamed at me to get out, to bolt down those stairs before whatever was lurking up here could find me. I turned my gaze back to the box and decided to take the diary with me. It might hold the key to everything or to nothing at all. I shoved it into my jacket, the weight of it making me more anxious. As I prepared to descend, I noticed something glinting in the corner of the attic. It was a key. It was old, rusted, and half buried under the debris, but it gleamed in a way that caught my eye. I bent to pick it up, my gut telling me it could unlock something important. Just then, a cold breeze swept through the attic, causing the door behind me to slam shut with a deafening clap. I spun around, panic gripping me completely. I was trapped. "Who's there?" I shouted, my voice shaking. There was no response, just silence and a throbbing in my ears. Then, in the stillness, I heard it a whisper, soft but clear. "You shouldn't have come back." A chill ran down my spine. I was no longer alone. My heart raced as I stood there frozen, the shadows in the attic thickening around me. I gripped the key tightly, its jagged edges digging into my palm. Whatever was in this house wanted me to leave, but I couldn't bring myself to move. The whispers grew louder, echoing in my mind as if they were a chant meant to ensnare me. "Get out!" I urged myself. I glanced again at the door, desperate for a way out. But it remained shut tight. Just as I turned to find another escape, out of nowhere, a hissing sound filled the room. My breath hitched as a shadow flickered across the far wall. My imagination was running wild, fueled by fear and the diary's ominous contents. There had to be a way to understand this lingering menace. With trembling hands, I took a step towards the window, but it was dusty and locked, an antique that hadn't been opened in decades. Frustration boiled within me. What was I going to do? Scream for help? No one would hear me up here. Then, without warning, the whisper returned, this time more insistent. "He knows you're here." I turned my head sharply, looking for the source. There was nothing, only the dim light and the oppressive air. But I felt it now, an undeniable presence lurking in the dark corners, watching. "Who?" I called out, half hoping for an answer, half scared of the potential response. I stood still, trying to steady my breath, waiting for something, anything to happen. The attic creaked ominously. I felt a rush of wind, colder than before, sweeping past me like a ghost. Suddenly, the shadows shifted again and I saw a figure, a fleeting silhouette darting through the beams of light. It was quick, disappearing before I could fully register what I had seen. That I stumbled back, my mind racing. Was it the ghost of my grandfather? My heart hammered in my chest as I thought about his writings. Had he been warning me about whatever was haunting this place? Then something caught my attention on the floor, a scrap of paper. I crouched down and picked it up. It was a torn page from the diary, one I hadn't noticed before. My eyes widened as I read the hurried scrawl: "If you find the key, do not use it. It leads to the shadows." Panic surged through me. Clutching the key, I felt a jolt of understanding in the pit of my stomach. The key was not just a tool, it was a trap. I was being lured deeper into whatever was causing this chaos. Just then, a loud thud echoed from downstairs, shaking the very foundations of the house. I jumped, my heart racing again. "What now?" I whispered, fear creeping in once more. I had to decide: do I face whatever had just entered the house, or do I try to escape this attic with the dark secrets it held? But then, like a bolt of lightning, something inside me urged me to find out the truth. I couldn't let fear control me. As I gathered my courage, I heard footsteps approaching the bottom of the stairs. Someone was coming. My breath quickened, and I knew I had only moments to act. That was when I realized I wasn't just trapped in the attic, I was being hunted. The footsteps grew louder, echoing in my ears like a drumbeat of panic. I pressed myself against the wall, clutching the key tightly. My instincts screamed at me to hide, but there was no place to go. The attic was a confined space, filled with shadows that seemed alive. I glanced around desperately, searching for anything that could help. The roof slanted low on one side, and piles of old boxes littered the floor. I darted over to the nearest box, hoping to find something useful or at least a better hiding spot. As I rifled through the contents, my fingers brushed against something cold and metallic. It was an old lantern. Grabbing it, I fumbled to find the switch. When the light flicked on, it illuminated the dusty attic in a warm glow, momentarily pushing back the shadows. The footsteps halted, and my heart pounded in my chest. Whoever it was downstairs was close. I held my breath, listening. I could hear muffled voices drifting up from below, but they were too indistinct to make out. I could feel my palms sweat around the key. Should I confront them? Or should I wait, hoping they would leave, when I spotted something else, a large, framed photograph sticking out from a pile of books. I tugged it free. The image depicted a family gathering, but the faces were blurred and darkened, as if something had interfered with the photograph. The framing felt eerie, a jarring reminder of everything that had happened since I discovered the diary. I turned it over to find an inscription, barely legible: "The truth lies in the shadows, where only the brave dare to tread." My pulse quickened. Was that a hint about what was really going on? What had my grandfather uncovered before he passed away? Suddenly, the voices below grew louder, and I pressed my hand over my mouth to stifle a gasp. I strained to listen, my heart racing again at the implications. The speaker sounded frantic, talking about the door and the shadows. My legs tightened, nerves on edge. Everything inside me screamed to move, to find a way out, but the truth tugged at me. I felt compelled to understand this darkness, even if it meant facing the unknown. As I shuffled to a better vantage point by the attic door, I realized the voices were growing closer, and I could hear another sound mingling with them, a low, almost purring hiss, echoing in rhythm with the voices. My breath caught in my throat. Whatever was down there was not just human. And then the door downstairs creaked open. A beam of light sliced through the cracks at the bottom of the attic door, spilling in and illuminating the space around me. I was running out of time. I had to find a way to escape or uncover the truth before they reached me. But as I prepared to make a decision, everything went dark. The lantern flickered, and I heard something rustling in the shadows beside me. I turned, panic flooding my senses. A figure lurked just beyond the light. "Help me," it whispered. The voice sounded familiar. It was a plea from the shadows, but it held a chilling edge that sent shivers racing down my spine. I had to know who or what it was. I took a deep breath, heart thundering, and moved toward the darkness. I stepped closer, the flickering lantern casting long, unsteady shadows that danced around me. My heart raced as I approached the figure. "Who are you?" I whispered, my voice barely breaking the silence. The figure remained shrouded, features obscured. "Please. You have to help me. They're coming for you, too," it warned, urgency lacing the tremor in its voice. My skin prickled with fear. "Who is coming? Why are you here?" My throat felt tight as I strained to catch a glimpse of the person. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being pulled into something far deeper than I understood. "Follow me," the figure urged, a hint of desperation in its tone. "We need to get away from here. Now." As much as I wanted to move closer, something held me back. Questions swirled in my mind. How had this person ended up here? What did they mean about the danger? Just then, the door below creaked again, louder this time. The voices were approaching, filled with a harsh intensity that sent chills up my spine. I was running out of time. I glanced at the figure. "I can't leave the attic." "Not yet. You don't have a choice. They know you're here." The urgency in the voice pulled at me, and I could see a shimmer of light reflecting off something in its hand. My curiosity piqued, I strained to see what it was, but the shadows enveloped it like a cloak. Suddenly, the lantern flickered again, and the light grew dim. "I wasn't lying," the figure said, stepping forward into the beam, revealing a gaunt face framed by dark hair. It struck me then this person was not a stranger. It was my cousin, Ivy, the one who vanished last summer during our last family gathering. I gasped, my heart pounding wildly. "Ivy? You're alive." Relief and terror pulsed through me. "Yes, but they won't let me go. You have to trust me," she pleaded. "I saw them. They're here for the key." My fingers tightened around the metal object. A pulse of panic shot through me. Was it really the key they wanted? What would happen if I handed it over? Before I could collect my thoughts, the door creaked again, and a low hissing sound echoed through the attic, much closer now. I could feel the weight of fear pressing on me, heavy and oppressive. The voices grew louder, filled with an unnatural tension. Now, please. We don't have time. Ivy's eyes were alight with urgency, and I could see the shadows shift behind her, not just in the corners but moving closer, dancing like they possessed minds of their own. Before I could respond, the beam of light from the lantern sputtered and died, plunging us into darkness. The hiss intensified, now a menacing growl that surrounded us. My instincts screamed for me to run, but I was frozen, torn between the urgency of Ivy's plea and the unknown danger creeping upon us. Make a choice. She shouted, her voice echoing in the shrinking space as panic enveloped me. Just as I was about to turn and flee, I felt something brush against my leg, a cold, clammy presence that made me shudder. Then everything went silent. It took a moment for my eyes to adjust to the void around me. I strained to hear, but silence enveloped us like an unwelcome shroud. Ivy was still there, just a breath away, but the shadows felt alive, inching closer, paralyzing me with dread. Can you see? I whispered, my voice barely cutting through the stillness. What? No. Ivy's words were suddenly cut off. I felt her body shift beside me, like she was looking for something. I reached out, my hand grazing her arm, grounding me in the chaos beginning to unfold. Then it happened. A soft scrape, like claws against wood, echoed from the far corner of the attic. My breath caught in my throat. I turned toward the sound, heart racing. Whatever was there, it was far too close now. Ivy, what do we do? Panic laced my words as I pulled her closer. My mind raced with possibilities. Should we just move? But where would we go? They want the key. We can't let them take it. Ivy's voice was steady despite the fear intertwining with it. I felt that familiar cold rush of adrenaline surging through my veins. Right, I managed, though the weight of the metal in my pocket felt heavier than ever. I could almost hear it calling out, drawing in whatever dark force lurked in the corners. What do we do? Follow me. There's a way out. Her grip tightened on my wrist, and for the first time, I sensed the determination behind her fear. I nodded. Lead the way. We moved cautiously, Ivy guiding me through the darkness. Our footsteps were hushed, swallowed by the thick air. I felt the chill creeping in, but physical awareness began to stir alongside my imagination. I wanted to believe there was a way out. Something propelled us forward, even as dread slithered along my spine. Suddenly, a loud crash echoed from below, the sound of something heavy hitting the floor. The shrill voice from before screeched up the staircase, frantic and unrestrained. She's here. Get her. Ivy's eyes widened, panic etched deep into her features. We need to hurry. I followed her blindly as she darted toward an old wooden trunk at the far end of the attic. Ivy yanked it open, revealing a tangle of ropes and what looked like a makeshift rope ladder. What is that? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. A way down. We have to go now. With haste, she began tying the ropes together. My anxiety swelled as I heard thumping steps growing louder. Whoever was down there was getting closer. That's when I saw it, a flicker of light filtering in through a crack in the attic wall. There. Ivy, is there a way through? Her eyes brightened with faint hope. Yes. Just help me finish this. I reached for the rope, my fingers trembling. Each knot felt like it took an eternity, but we were out of time. I could hear voices, angry and distorted, rising through the stairwell. We have to get out before they do. Tension clawed at my throat. As we finished, I could feel my world narrowing. Ivy only had eyes for the shaft of light. Then, a cold wind swept through the attic, slamming the door below with a deafening bang. I froze, the key in my pocket feeling impossibly heavy. Go. Ivy shouted, her voice breaking the spell of fear that held me. I bolted for the light, the unknown danger pushing me forward into that open space. And just as I reached the blinding glow, the attic door burst open behind me. In that moment, I dared not look back, but I could hear them, their voices rising in angry crescendo. Who were they? What did they want? My heart raced as I plunged into the light, not knowing where it would lead. But I couldn't stay here. Not now. I stumbled forward, my foot catching on something unseen. My heart pounded in my chest as I crashed onto the ground, the light vanishing as quickly as it had appeared. Panic surged through me. Are you okay? Ivy's voice broke through the shadows again. I think so, I managed, pushing myself up. It was darker now, the air thick with moisture. Curiously, I could smell earth and something sweet, like decaying leaves. Ivy? I whispered, desperately searching for her silhouette in the dark. Where are you? Her hand found mine before I could stand fully. I'm here. I inhaled deeply, trying to steady my breath. What happened? Where are we? My voice trembled, echoing slightly in the unfamiliar space. I think it's some kind of cellar. I didn't expect it would be like this. Ivy sounded uncertain, her voice laced with fear. But we can't stay here. We need to find a way out. Gripping her hand tighter, I felt a slight tremor run through her. You think they're following us? We need to keep moving, Ivy urged. Together, we started to navigate through the gloom, our feet scuffing against the earthen floor. I scanned the walls, hoping to catch a glimpse of anything that could guide us. As our eyes adjusted, shadows seemed to morph into shapes lurking just out of sight, then I noticed the soft sound of running water, oddly inviting amidst the tension. Do you hear that? I asked, pointing in the direction of the noise, though I felt a chill creeping back into my gut. Yeah, Ivy replied, hesitating. It could lead somewhere. We have to take the chance, I said, more to convince myself than her. We moved towards the sound, stepping carefully. As we inched down a narrow passage, cold air flicked around us, making it hard to breathe. Ivy suddenly stopped. What now? I whispered. There was a dull thud above, then silence. We both flinched at the sound, my instincts screaming that we were still not alone. Ivy looked up, eyes wide with dread. Do you think they found us? I don't know, I said. But if we keep going, we'll find out. We pressed forward, the echo of our footsteps swallowed by the darkness. The damp air hung thick, filling my lungs like a weight. I focused on the water, my only anchor in a sea of uncertainty. Finally, the ground sloped downward, leading us to a small room. It was damp and musty, but the sight that met us sent a jolt through my stomach. In the center stood an ornate stone well, ancient and covered in vines. I felt drawn to it, but a pang of fear held me back. What is this place? Ivy stepped closer, her curiosity overpowering her fear. I don't know, but we have to look. There could be something here that can help us. As she approached, the water's surface rippled unexpectedly, the image shifting, then suddenly revealing the outline of the very attic we had fled. I gasped, feeling a sudden connection to the scene before me, but before I could speak, a dark figure loomed behind Ivy in the reflection. Look out! I yelled. The figure advanced, sepulchral eyes locked on us. I was about to scream when everything burst into a blinding light, forcing me to shield my eyes. Then everything went dark again. I blinked, straining to adjust to the darkness again. My ears rang, and the sudden silence felt heavy. Ivy was still gripping my hand, her breath ragged beside me. I don't like this, I murmured, panic squeezing my chest. I wanted to run, but I could hardly see a thing. I forgot the well and the figure that had threatened us. Had it been real? The line between reality and fear blurred like the darkness around us. Ivy's fingers trembled in mine. What just happened? Where did that light come from? I don't know, I admitted, scanning the pitch black. But we need to get out of here. We remained still, listening intently for any sign of danger. I felt the urge to whisper, as though speaking too loudly would shatter the fragile quiet. That's when I heard it. The trickle of water returned, soft and persistent in the distance. Let us move toward that sound, I said, gripping Ivy's hand tighter. We stepped carefully, our feet brushing against loose stones. Ivy squeezed my hand back, her warmth grounding me. As we drew closer to the sound of water, I felt a reassuring pulse of hope. Maybe it would lead to an exit. The ground beneath us became uneven, and dampness clung to our skin. Suddenly, I stumbled again, my foot slipping on a hidden rock. Without warning, I crashed forward, yanking Ivy down with me. I'm okay. I forced out as we both landed in a heap on the ground but barely got the words out before Ivy gasped. Look! She pointed toward the far wall, where a glimmer caught my eye. At first, I thought it was just a reflection, but as I blinked, it sharpened into focus a faint, flickering light. What is that? I breathed, excitement mingling with fear. I don't know, Ivy began, but before she could finish, the air thickened with tension. Shadows seemed to stretch toward us, and I felt the hairs on my neck prickle. I think we should go the other way, I suggested, suddenly feeling vulnerable. But Ivy hesitated, her gaze fixed on the flicker. What if it leads us out? Or it could lead us straight to them, I countered, a chill snaking down my spine. I could still picture that dark figure in the well, watching us. Just then, the flickering light brightened abruptly, illuminating a door set into the wall behind it. I blinked in disbelief. Ivy, there's a door. Her eyes widened, hope flickering on her face. We should check it. Before I could protest, she surged forward, pulling me along with her. The door was old, weathered, but as Ivy reached for the handle, I hesitated. What if it's a trap? I murmured, but the moment was gone. She grasped the handle and pushed, the door creaking open to reveal a void, shadows shifting just beyond the threshold. Are you ready? She asked, glancing back at me, uncertainty dancing in her eyes. Not really, I admitted. Then, without waiting for my answer, Ivy stepped inside. I followed reluctantly, the weight of something unseen pressing down on me. As we crossed the threshold, an ear-splitting slam echoed behind us. I spun around to see the door swinging shut, sealing us in darkness. This was a mistake. Do you hear that? Ivy's voice quivered as she peered into the dark room ahead. What? I whispered, my heart drumming in my chest. A low, guttural noise rumbled from the shadows. It grew louder, vibrating through the air, and I knew we were not alone. We needed to run. But where to? Then I saw a flicker of movement ahead. It was too late. I didn't have time to think. Gripping Ivy's hand tightly, I pulled her deeper into the darkness. Every instinct urged me to flee, but the looming presence of whatever was behind us made it feel like we were being hunted. Ivy gasped as we stumbled into what felt like a narrow corridor. The air was thick and stale, pressing against us like an unwelcome weight. Keep moving. I urged, my heart racing. Shadows danced along the walls, flickering like an ominous flame. We could still hear that low growl echoing, growing steadily closer. With every step, the noises became more distinct, voices rising and falling, sometimes overlapping, creating a chaotic melody of dread. Where do we go? Ivy shouted, fear edging her voice. Just then, the corridor opened up into a small chamber illuminated only by a faint glow from what looked like a pile of glowing stones in the corner. My curiosity flickered beside the fear that surged through me. Let's check it out, maybe it can help us, I suggested, though part of me knew it might be a mistake. As we approached, I saw the stones were oddly shaped, pulsing gently like a heartbeat. I reached out to touch one. The moment my fingers made contact, a rush of energy coursed through me. The glow intensified, visions of the attic flashed through my mind, the dark figure, the key, the whispers. We need to go. Ivy pulled at my sleeve, her voice cutting through my spiraled thoughts. I yanked my hand back from the stone, tearing my focus away from the creeping darkness that threatened to consume us. Just as we turned to leave, the growls morphed into shrill cries. They're here! Ivy yelled, and I felt my stomach drop at the sound of a door slamming shut somewhere behind us. I pushed forward, leading Ivy back down the narrow passage, the noise behind us swelling into chaos that I couldn't tell how much time had passed, but every second felt like a lifetime as we raced through the gloom. I spotted a faint sliver of light ahead. There! I shouted, adrenaline surging. But the closer we got, the less sure I felt. When we reached the end, we found another door, a heavy wooden barrier, weathered with age. I rattled the handle, but it wouldn't budge. Desperation clawed at me. Help me! I yelled. Ivy joined in, throwing her weight against the door as I pushed with all my strength. Just as the cries behind us crescendoed into a cacophony, the door gave way, swinging open with an unsettling creak that I shoved Ivy through first, and we tumbled into yet another dim room, the cellar, I realized, overwhelming with the scent of damp earth. The pulsing light overhead flickered, illuminating the space just enough for us to see old barrels stacked against the walls and dirt-streaked floors. The lack of windows made it feel suffocating. I think we lost them, Ivy said, panting heavily. I hoped she was right, but the unease settled in deep. The shadows shifted ominously, and I felt a pull to the walls that spoke of hidden secrets that I found myself stepping toward the opposite wall, drawn by a low hum. Ivy reached for me, but I waved her off. Just a moment, I said, feeling oddly entranced. The closer I stepped, the more familiar the fear and whispers felt that I glanced back to Ivy, who hesitated, eyes wide with uncertainty. Be careful, she warned, but my curiosity took over. When I pressed my palm against the damp earth, a ripple of energy surged through my body, reminding me of the glowing stones. It felt like an electric current, and I swayed, trying to ground myself. In the silence, an image surged forward, my grandfather's face, the shadows in the attic, the whispers growing louder. He knew something. What had he discovered? As I pulled my hand back, I noticed a faint outline in the soil. With a trembling hand, I dug my fingers into the dirt. My heart raced with hope as it yielded easily, revealing an old chest, engraved with family symbols I recognized. The whispers crescendoed, echoing my thoughts, do not disturb what lies buried. Ivy! I found something! I cried, heart pounding. Just then, the growls returned, closer than before. We need to open it, I called, urgency rising in my throat. Are you crazy? She shouted back, fear tinting her voice that I didn't answer. I forced the lid open, dirt crumbling away. Inside was a jumble of objects, a faded photograph, a rusted locket, and there, at the bottom, a familiar, engraved key. My hands shook as I picked it up. As I held it, the air thickened around me, crackling with tension. Suddenly, the cellar door slammed open again with a deafening bang. Echoing cries filled the air. I looked at Ivy in panic as shadows surged into the room, sprawling toward us. Grab the chest, I shouted, adrenaline propelling me forward. We yanked the chest up together, its weight grounding us even as dread grew, but the shadows exploded around us, colliding, the intensity overwhelming. I felt the key slip from my fingers, clattering against the floor. Ivy, the key! I shouted, but it was too late. The shadows latched onto it, consuming it in thick darkness. A shudder ran through me as I felt the room shift, the energy pulsing wild. I could still hear the whispers, louder than before, swirling around me. You shouldn't have come back, they echoed, and I couldn't tell if they were coming from inside my head or from the encroaching dark. Before I could react, everything exploded into light. I shielded my eyes, trying to discern reality from shadow as the cries erupted into a blinding crescendo. I stumbled backward into Ivy, who clutched my arm tightly. "Where are we?" she gasped as the light dimmed again, leaving a lingering glow. "I don't know," I whispered, feeling the remnants of the shadows fade as if they had never been. The cellar walls were gone. Instead, we stood in a small clearing, surrounded by trees. Leaves rustled ominously overhead, the air ripe with earthy scents. "What just happened?" Ivy breathed, shaking. I felt the weight of uncertainty settle around us. I think we escaped, but it doesn't feel over." Shadows flickered at the edges of my vision, shadows that didn't belong to trees. "Do you think they'll come back?" Ivy's voice broke, a blend of fear and sadness that I shrugged, uncertainty gripping me. "I think they've always been here." We stumbled forward into the clearing, the weight of the darkness trailing behind us. I glanced back over my shoulder toward the shadows creeping in the distance. Who were they, really? What did they want? Was the key truly gone, or just hidden for now? And as I looked to Ivy, I knew some questions would remain unanswered, swirling in a shadowy fog just as they had before. What lay ahead was uncertain, but one thing was clear: whatever I had encountered that day had changed everything. I moved forward, unsure but determined to leave the darkness behind, even as it lurked just out of sight. None of us are ever truly free of our past, it seems.